So today I'm going to be highlighting some of my recent non-twink invasions. Soul level 15 plus 1, and for most of the video we're going to be rocking main hand deep battle axe, offhand hand axe, L2 on the hand axe, combos into R1 on the battle axe. And you might be asking, why these weapons in particular? Why this setup? Isn't the deep battle axe completely fucking terrible? And the answer is yes. Yes, it is completely fucking terrible. However, it is probably the best axe I have access to as a non-twink, and I want it to simulate the Dragon Slayer's axe, which would probably be my weapon of choice if I was going to twink it up like as hard as I could. So, just as a little mental thought exercise, imagine if every time I hit someone in this video with the deep battle axe, imagine a raw, bundled Dragon Slayer's axe instead, and just picture the difference it could make in some of these invasions. This video is sort of meant to be a continuation of Mocha Latte's non-twink invasions video. If you haven't watched it, there will be a link in the description, but his main thesis is that essentially overleveled phantoms can be far worse than twinks, so twinking is the only real way to stay competitive, level the playing field, etc., etc. at low levels. I would agree, but I'd also like it to be noted that beyond running into overleveled phantoms a lot at low levels, you actually run into twink hosts, phantoms, and blues even more than you run into soul level 657 motherfuckers with great shields and full havels. Let's take this invasion here. Innocent cleric casting sorceries? Okay, not sure what the lore is on that, but innocent discount Lothric Knight cosplay, that's fine. Innocent mad bro with the Earthel straight sword and a whip. Wonky setup, but sure. But if you look a little more closely, you'll see that the seemingly innocent Lothric Knight is actually, you hear that sound and see that little aura? He's wearing the red Tearstone ring, which is only accessible in Lothric Castle, and therefore makes him a twink of sorts, yes? It doesn't matter to me really whether he got it dropped to him or he beat Dancer himself. He's using endgame gear, is he not? So my point is that twinks are pretty much everywhere at low levels, and it's not just invaders. Plenty of twinks on the home team as well. Non-twink invaders get twinked on by twink hosts, and non-twink hosts get twinked on by twink invaders. Anyway, here's me versus a twink invader. I'm gonna bully him for a bit. He starts out with a very, modern, I guess, setup. Main hand straight sword, offhand hand axe. I would personally prefer an S-stock in the offhand, but either works, to be honest. Neither are bad. And this is gonna be a big challenge for me, obviously. I do have host advantages, double Estus, but I chugged 3 of them in a contest of memes against Rusty Greatsword when he was dropping me +1 twink, non-twink gear. And this guy has more HP than I do. He has over 1,000 HP, and I do not, even when I've embered HP. So this is going to be a pretty significant challenge, especially if he decides to heal, because then he also has the advantage of 7 + 10 Estus. My Estus ring will help me out, but with +1 Estus it can only do so much. He swaps to Perseverance here. Perseverance basically telegraphs that your opponent is about to be extremely aggressive. He's going for some Perseverance backstabs, but he's also a little too aggressive and relies on rolling in, which means that I can backstab the roll in myself. As you can see, he's just absolutely spamming it. I'm just going for more meme backstabs, but I'm just reacting to his hyper-aggression as is necessary. Noticing patterns, seeing that he's gonna repeatedly press L1 on a stun lock, so I can just toggle to my Cestus and parry him myself. Eventually he decides that Perseverance is not working, and this is where the fight really starts going downhill for him, because he's parry spamming. Yeah, he's parry spamming. On the one hand, if he lands one of those, I'm sure I'm getting one shot by a Fire Dagger and Hornet Ring, but on the other hand, it also means that he's going to take a lot of damage if he keeps on missing them. He's doing them in a telegraphed enough fashion that it is not particularly hard to avoid getting parried by him, and that means that I can bully him really, really hard with the mix-ups of the offhand hand axe and main hand deep battle axe. Again, I just want you to imagine what would potentially be happening if I had a bundled Dragon Slayer's axe in my right hand instead of this mediocre tool that is the Deep Battle Axe. Anyway, here I want to ask a question. Anyway, here's the question. Are twinks dangerous? I mean, they have endgame weapons and rings and armor and all that other shit. That's gonna make them somewhat dangerous, right? They typically have high healing Estus in large quantities. That makes them dangerous, if only in terms of how long they can survive. But at the end of the day, I think in a 1v1, most twinks are manageable. Either they will be using a weapon with a good moveset that pumps out fairly standard damage for the Undead Settlement, like a raw longsword, which is 100% accessible at this point. Or, they'll be using a weapon with theoretically a bad moveset, like the Dragon Slayer's Axe or the Dark Hand, but it just happens to come paired with a shit ton of damage. But either way, either you're on a close to level playing field with them because you also have access to the weapons with good movesets that don't do a lot of damage, or you've got something of an advantage because, they'll do a shit ton of damage if they can hit you, but they'll struggle to hit anyone who's competent and has the ability to reaction roll well. But, I mean, scariest weapons for me in a twink versus non-twink 1v1 are definitely the Irithel Straight Sword and Raw Gru Curved Sword, both of which are accessible fairly early in the game. But the combination of their excellent movesets and status effect properties makes them easily the best, if not necessarily the most effective twink weapons. Overall, in a 1v1, twinks are usually only somewhat dangerous in my opinion. I mean, if this guy parries me, he's going to one-shot me, but he can barely hit me unless I do something stupid, like go for a dumb parry or something similar. Unless you are realistically fighting, I don't know, Hazy or somebody similar, the only thing that should be giving you trouble from a Dragon Slayer's Axe user is your own panic and inexperience. Just reaction rolling gets you a really, really long way against like 99% of Dragon Slayer's Axe users, especially twinked ones, because in not so shocking news, most twinks tend to be pretty bad or mediocre at the game, which means you can bully them with proper experience and equipment. So, what is the first thing that can make a twink really, really dangerous? Because I don't think they're particularly dangerous in a 1v1, like 90% of the time. Here's my answer, number one. Another twink to hang out with. Since twinks have so much HP relative to the damage you can deal to them in one stamina bar, and their Estus heals them for so much of their health bar, your only real chance to deal burst damage that will finish them off is maintained pressure that prevents them from having a good chance to heal. This is not really a reasonable expectation against a good player. They're not going to panic roll enough. But luckily, most twinks tend to be, average to bad, so it's a lot more doable. It's also not a reasonable expectation against two bad players. Pressure in this game kind of collapses against two players with no friendly fire, who can, cover each other's mistakes, take pressure off of the other one, allowing the other one to heal or whatever. That's why gankers on mic tend to huddle around each other like penguins conserving heat against the Antarctic wind. It negates invader pressure and allows even mediocre players to win fights against increased numbers. Divide and conquer has been the invader mantra for a long time, and friendly fire is the only reason why that's so. I made a big mistake by jumping down here and not getting through the doorway. Anyway. You know what's coming. It's a little bit delayed. He's searching for it in his menu. There it is. Anyway. Alright. On to the second thing that makes a twink really, really dangerous, in my opinion. So, what is the second thing that makes twinks dangerous, in my opinion? My answer is when they have a bad connection to their opponent. I don't really care if it's because of packet loss or just distance. Wi-Fi or just latency, but the fact is that latency and lag tend to make trades more likely because you can't interrupt people anymore. Instead of interrupting, you are just going to trade. And since most twinks tend to be using weapons with mediocre movesets, but high damage, like the Dark Hand and Dragon Slayer's Axe, and apparently the Preacher's White Arm. I don't know what the hell his build is that it does so much freaking damage in the Undead Settlement, but anyway, this high damage nature, even with a bad moveset, means that they will win trades heavily. Yeah, he gets a point down for bow glitching and for being soul level 30 in the Undead Settlement. Good lord. But anyway, we re-invade him. He's put armor on, so he takes even less damage. But his connection is so inconsistent and bad, and he's skipping everywhere, that even when I do properly outspace him, he hits me for a fifth of my health, and I hit him for a 20th of his, because his Preacher's White Arm does a shit ton of damage, and my hand axe does like none. I failed to make an adaptation early enough in this fight, kept on trying to go with the hand axe and deep battle axe, eventually swapped to the four-pronged plow, but at that point it was pretty much too little too late. Should have swapped earlier if I was going to have any hope of winning it. But anyway. Additionally, since lag makes it significantly easier to make mistakes in spacing, that also means that the weapon with the worst moveset will be benefited as precision spacing becomes harder to do, and you will likely take hits you didn't think you were going to take. The high damage nature of twink weapons makes these extra hits more costly. Also, can someone please tell me why overleveled phantoms are not considered twinks? Like, in a literal definition sense. Let's look at the definition of a twink for a second. Strictest definition of twink in Dark Souls 3, in my opinion, is someone who A. beat the game to acquire endgame gear, and B. returned to an early area of the game to partake in multiplayer. That seems like a very reasonable definition of a twink to me. Overleveled phantoms have A. typically beaten the game in order to acquire endgame gear, and B, they have returned to an early area of the game to partake in multiplayer. I mean, where is the distinction? Where is the line being drawn here? Why are they not just called twinks? Maybe it's because they're downscaled, and that takes away the advantages that endgame gear provides twinks, but not them. Alright, so let's check out the advantages that endgame gear provides twinks. Twinks, through their endgame gear, typically A, do a lot of damage, B, take very little damage, and C, have full Estus that heals the vast majority, if not all, of their health bar. Yes, these are the three principal advantages of twinks, in my opinion. You know, as opposed to overleveled phantoms, who have acquired endgame gear in order to A, do a lot of damage, B, take very little damage, and C, have full Estus that heals the vast majority, if not all, of their health bar. I'm sorry, but where is the distinction? Why are they not just called twinks? Anyway, in the invasion you're watching, I'm about to realize that beating Havel to death 50 damage at a time is not a viable strategy, so I'm about to... Wait. Why is the music getting louder? Is this only me? Can you guys hear that? Wait, what's going on? Hello? 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 God damn it, fucking impromptu montages, always interrupting my monologue. What do I even pay my incompetent editors for? Anyway, Blue gets summoned here, so I need to back off and find some PvE support. Let's talk about blues briefly in the Undead Settlement and High Wall specifically. Blues are incredibly consistently twinked out in these two areas, and I think I know why. It's because you get the blue sentinels at the beginning of the Crucifixion Woods. And unless the host who's wearing Way of Blue is unlucky enough to get someone who happens to be still within their blue summon range a full area or two ahead of them in the game, the only other people who are available to be summoned for them are people who have beaten the game but are still relatively low level. Namely, twinks. I mean, as a host in the Undead Settlement or High Wall, you literally cannot summon, as a blue spirit, someone who is also progressing through the same area as you on New Game. I mean, look at the blue I'm fighting here. Smo armor and double dark hands. You literally cannot acquire 2 dark hands until New Game Plus. So he either had one dropped to him, or he's beaten the entire game, and is now in New Game Plus and has done Yuria of Londor's questline again. He starts trying to play the "you can't hit me" reaction rule game, but I have an offhand hand axe, so you can't just do that shit to me. Anyway, blue dies because he's a genius in trades, even when he has no health. Host gets reaction parried. Host dies. And then I die. Thank you all for watching. Keep it silly, y'all.